I used to call it my home, but to them I was just the woman who cooked their meals, scrubbed their dishes and ate whatever was left on their plates. They laughed in the dining room while I stood at the sink, scraping their scraps into the trash. My own son, his wife, not even a glance my way until the day I realized I wasn't the servant here. I was the owner, and I was done playing small. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. And if you have a story to share, I'd love to hear it. I don't remember exactly when it shifted when I went from being mom to being the one who cleared their plates while they laughed around the table. But I remember the night it broke me. It was a Friday. I'd spent the whole afternoon in the kitchen chopping, stirring, roasting. The house smelled like rosemary and lemon, the kind of meal you make when you want people to feel cared for. I wiped down the counters, set the table just right, polished the wine glasses so they catch the candlelight. Brian, my son, brought a couple of friends over after work. His wife, Ashley, flitted around the living room, pouring drinks, smiling for their Instagram stories. They all sat down together, voices loud, laughter easy, the sound of people who feel at home except for me. No one asked me to sit, no one saved me a place, so I stay where they expected me to stay in the kitchen. I served the food, I refilled their drinks, and when they were done, I cleared the plates one by one, while they back in their chairs, laughing about weekend plans I wasn't part of. I ate, standing at the sink, the leftover spoonfuls of potatoes, the cold pieces of chicken. No one wanted fork in one hand, dish towel in the other. I listened to them talk about their lives, their vacations, their jobs, their funny little stories, like I wasn't even there, like I was just the woman who cleaned up after them. My son, my own child, the boy I raised on my own when his father walked out, the boy I worked 2 jobs to support, sitting there watching me wash the dishes while he laughed with his friends. That was the night I knew I wasn't family to them any. I was just the help. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there on the couch, the same one I bought, the one Ashley always complained was out of style, staring at the ceiling, listening to the dishwasher hum. Their laughter still echoed in my head, the sound of it sharp, heavy. They had gone to bed hours ago, full, happy, untouched. I couldn't stop thinking about how I got here. When Brian finished school and told me they were struggling, I opened my door. I told him, stay here until you're on your feet. You shouldn't have to worry about money right now. I meant every word. I cover the groceries, the bills, the little things and the big things, too. I let Ashley paint over the walls I spent years picking colors for. I smiled when they swapped out my furniture for the sleek, modern stuff they liked. I stayed quiet when my own keepsakes ended up packed away in boxes in the garage. It was just stuff I told myself, let them feel at home. But the longer they stayed, the less it felt like my house at all. Ashley took over the living room with her yoga mats and laptop, shooting her little wellness coach videos. Brian barely came out of the bedroom, glued to whatever work project kept him too busy to notice. And me, I stayed out of their way, cooked the meals, washed the dishes, folded the towels. I don't know when it stopped being temporary. And the worst part, I kept telling myself it was fine, that this was just what moms do. We give, we hold the space, we keep the peace. But somewhere deep down, I felt it, the slow erosion, the shrinking of my place in my own home. It's a strange kind of heartbreak, realizing you've raised as someone who doesn't see you anymore. It was the smallest thing that snapped me out of it. The next morning, I woke up early, like I always did, and went straight to the kitchen. I started the coffee, cracked the eggs, sliced the bread for toast. Same routine, same habit. Ashley walked in while I was standing at the stove, scrolling on her phone, half listening to one of those self-help podcasts she's always quoting. She didn't say good morning. She didn't even look up. She reached over my shoulder, grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filled it with almond milk and turned right back around, voice chirping into her phone's mic, just setting my intentions for the day. Guys, I stood there, spatula in my hand, eggs sizzling behind me, and I realized this was my place now, not the head of a table, not the one they leaned on. Respected, appreciated, the cook, the cleaner, the extra set of hands. I didn't even finish making the eggs. I turned off the stove, sat down at the kitchen table and stared out the window at the backyard. I once worked so hard to make beautiful the flower beds I planted. The little bird bath Bran helped me pick out. When he was 8, I thought about all the nights I came home from my cleaning job, bone-tired, barely able to stand, but still made sure Brian had dinner on the table. Still made sure he had clean clothes for school. Still showed up. I gave him everything I had. And now I was invisible. Worse than invisible. I was useful. It hit me so hard I couldn't catch my breath. Not angry. Not even sad. Just done. I didn't say a word that morning. Not to Brian. Not to Ashley. I finished my coffee, rinsed the cup and wiped down the counter like I always did, but my hands were steady in a way they hadn't been for a long time. I went upstairs, folded my clothes into the small suitcase I kept at the back of the closet, the one I hadn't touched in years, just a few outfits, my toothbrush, the photo of Brian as a little boy at the beach, grinning with his 2 front teeth missing. That was it. No big speech, no goodbye note. I wasn't about to explain myself to people who never bothered to see me while they were still asleep. I quietly packed the rest of what I needed, my wallet, my ID, a couple of keepsakes I wasn't willing to leave behind, the few things that were actually mine. I walked through the house one last time, running my hand along the banister Brian used to slide down when he was little, past the hallway where his school photo still hung, the kindergarten picture where he wore that lopsided tie because he wanted to look like a grown-up. It was all still there, the proof of everything I had poured into this life, but the people standing in it, they weren't mine anymore. I closed the door gently behind me, no slamming, no drama. I walked down the front steps, suitcase rolling quietly behind me on the pavement, got into my car, drove away. No one noticed. I was gone. Not yet. The first night alone was quiet, too quiet. I stayed at a small motel on the edge of town. One of those places with scratchy blankets and a television mounted too high on the wall. I sat on the bed, the suitcase still zipped at my feet and stared at my phone. Nothing. No missed calls. No text. Not from Brian. Not from Ashley. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some panic. A question at least. Mom, where are you? But the silence. It was louder than any words they could have sent. I scrolled through old pictures on my phone. Birthdays. Christmas mornings. All those family dinners I spent hours making perfect. There was Brian blowing out candles. There was Ashley posing for photos at the table. I sat holding the wine glass. I bought picture after picture of me behind the camera. Not in the frame. Always the one holding the scene together. Never the one being held. I thought about calling. About explaining. But then I remembered how many stood at that sink washing their plates while they laughed in the next room. Never once thinking to offer me a chair at the table. I lay down on the bed, pulled the stiff motel blanket up to my chin and stared at the ceiling until morning. Still no call. Still no text. That was when I knew I wasn't just invisible to them. I was disposable. The motel room smelled like bleach and old cigarettes. Even though the sign on the door said non-smoking, the blanket was thin, scratchy, the kind that never really keeps you warm. There was a tiny microwave in the corner, one plastic chair by the window, a television bolted high up on the wall, always playing some late night and commercial. I sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. No calls, no text. I kept refreshing the screen, waiting for Brian's name to pop up for any kind of question. Mom, where are you? Or maybe even Ashley, voice sharp, trying to pretend she cared nothing. The silence said more than words ever could. I ran my hand down my face, feeling the exhaustion in my bones. The ache of it wasn't just physical. It was the weight of realizing how easy it was for them to live without me. After everything. After the meals, the bills, the care. After the years. I bent over backwards to make their life comfortable, to make their life possible. I pulled my knees up to my chest, sat there in that awful chair by the window, and watched the parking lot outside. A couple arguing by a silver minivan, a man loading bags into the trunk of a beat-up sedan. Life going on, strangers moving through their routines, while my whole life felt like it had been turned inside out. I thought about the house, every room I had painted, every curtain I had hung, the grocery list on the fridge, my handwriting scribbled across the paper, the pantry full of food I destocked, the shelves Ashley had reorganized because my system wasn't aesthetic enough, the furniture, she said, needed to go, the things I paid for erased, covered up, replaced, piece by piece. They had made my home theirs, and I had let them. But as I sat there in that ugly motel room, something clicked. The house was still in my name. I never signed it over. Not because I was being strategic back then, but because Brian had always said, no rush, Mom, we'll figure it out later. Later never came. And now suddenly, that small detail mattered more than anything else. I felt it sitting there, the slow burn of anger starting to rise, but not the loud, screaming kind, not the rage they probably expected. If they even noticed I was gone, this was something colder, sharper clarity, because hey, erased the truth. They forgot while they were busy laughing at my back, waving me off as the woman who just keeps things running, the roof over their heads, the electricity that powered their Netflix binges, the water that filled their bathtub and watered their plants. All of it was mine. The more I sat with that, clearer it became. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to explain. I didn't even need to shout. I had something more powerful than their approval. I had a paperwork. I had control. I looked down on my phone again. Screen still dark. No messages waiting. I powered it off, tossed it onto the bed. They weren't looking for me, but soon they noticed I was gone. And when they did, they were going to feel it because I was done being their servant. Now I was going to be the storm. It took 2 more days for Brian to notice. 2 days of Meg 1. The meals not made, the laundry not folded, the fridge sitting empty. I imagined Ashley pacing around the kitchen, irritated, wondering why the groceries weren't restocked, why the house felt a little colder without someone quietly holding it all together behind the scenes. The text came at 8:10 a.m. Hey, Mom, are you okay? Haven't seen you around. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not, where are you? Not we're worried. Not we miss you. Just that flat, casual, half-hearted check-in. Like he was asking if I was running late to a dentist's appointment. I didn't reply. Instead, I stood at the window of that little motel room, watching the sunrise creep across the parking lot, painting the pavement, gold cars coming and going, life moving on, as if nothing had changed, but everything had changed. I pour the last of the motel coffee into a paper cup, the kind that always tastes like cardboard, no matter how much creamer you add, and I sat down with a notebook, the same kind I used to buy for Brian when he was a kid, back when I packed his school lunches and wrote little notes inside his backpack that said things like, "You've got this, love, Mom." I flipped to the first page and started writing. Not a diary, not this time. This was different. I wrote down dates, numbers, details, the house still in my name, the bills, every receipt, every payment that came from my account. I looked up the refinancing history online. They hadn't even tried to change the paperwork. Maybe they assumed I'd never walk away. Maybe they thought I was too soft, too loyal, too small to ever leave. But hey, erase the thing about the people you step on for too long. Eventually they stopped lying down. The next morning, another text came. This one from Ashley. Hey, Cheryl, not sure if you've been feeling well, but we could use your help around the house. Things are a little crazy right now. Let us know when you're coming back. Your help. Like I was a housekeeper on break. I laughed out loud. The sound surprised me. Sharp, bitter. The first real laugh I'd let out in weeks, and it didn't feel good. Felt like a knife twisting. I put the phone down without answering. Instead, I went out, walked down the block to the library, found a quiet corner with a table and a plug for my old laptop, pulled up the county records, checked the title on the house again, just to be sure. My name, my property. All this time they had been living like it was theirs, furnishing it, decorating it, posing in it, like they owned the place. But the foundation beneath their feet, that was mine. They built their castle on my back, and they never once looked down. But they were about to feel the ground start to crack. The thing about silence, it makes people uncomfortable. They don't know what to do with it. Brian and Ashley had been so used to my quiet cooperation, my constant presence in the background, making sure their lives ran smoothly. I don't think it even crossed their minds that I might not come back. The third day after I left, Brian called. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was casual at first, like he was just checking in. Hey, Mom, I'm just wondering where you've been. Ashley's a little stressed. Things have been kind of busy around here without you. Give me a call. Okay. I sat there in that stiff motel chair, listening to the message twice the way he said, busy around here without you, like I was a missing appliance, like the vacuum broke and they were waiting for the repairman. It was never we miss you, never are you okay, never we're sorry. The fourth day, the text got more frantic. Ashley was the one writing this time. Cheryl, we really need you back. The kitchen is a mess. The laundry is piling up. And Brian's stressed out with work. Please just let us know what's going on. You can't just leave like this. I read that line over and over. You can't just leave like this. The entitlement of it hit me so hard. I actually laughed again. Not because it was funny, but because it was unbelievable. They really believed I owed them an explanation. That after everything, I should be the one apologizing for stepping away as if my place was to endure, to serve, to keep showing up, no matter how small they made me feel. I put my phone down, an open notebook in my lap, and just sat there. Let the silence stretch between us. I started thinking about all the little things they probably hadn't even noticed they relied on before. How the toilet paper didn't refill itself. How the pantry didn't stock magically overnight. How the house didn't stay clean by accident. Every soft task, every small kindness I had given without asking for thanks, now felt like power. Because without me, the wheels weren't turning and they were starting to notice. I spent that night not planning my return, but my next move. Because I knew now walking away was only the first step. The real power wasn't just in my absence. It was in what I still owned. It was a week before Brian showed up at the motel. I heard the knock before I saw him. 3 soft raps against the door. Hesitant, like the knock of someone unsure if they're welcome. I didn't open it right away. I stood on the other side, hand resting on the knob, just listening. He knocked again, a little harder this time. "Mom, are you?" And there his voice cracked just enough to let the fear slip through. Not panic, not heartbreak, but that edge of discomfort that comes when people finally realize the person they took for granted might really be gone. I opened the door slowly, left the chain on. There he was, Brian, my son. Same messy hair, same slumped shoulders, but he looked different now. Eyes puffy, dark circles under them like he hadn't been sleeping. He leaned against the door frame, hands stuffed into his jacket pockets. Voice softer. "Now, Mom, what are you doing? Why are you here?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him, taking in the sight of the boy I had raised. The man who sat in that dining room, watching me scrape his plate like I was staff. He shifted awkwardly, cleared his throat. "Ashley's freaking out. We didn't know where you went. You could have at least told us." At least I felt my jaw tighten. "I'm not your maid, Brian." The words came out calm, flat. But I saw the way he blinked at them, like they were brand new, like he never thought of me as anything else. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling hard. "Look, I get that you're upset. Okay, but you can't just walk away from us. From family." Family. The word hit me like a slap, because that's what they called me when they wanted something. When I was folding their clothes, paying their bills, cooking their dinner. But when I was standing at the sink, eating scraps, scraping plates, they didn't treat me like family. They treated me like background. I kept my voice steady. I didn't walk away from family, Brian. I walked away from people who stopped seeing me as human. His face fell. He opened his mouth like he had something to say. Some excuse, some apology, maybe, but nothing came out. Just the stunned, awkward silence between us. I didn't open the door any further. I didn't invite him in. "You should go," I said, and I closed the door gently. The click of a latch sounding louder than any scream. Brian didn't come back the next day. Neither did Ashley, but the text kept coming short-clicked, getting less polite with every message. "We need to talk. You can't keep avoiding this. This is childish. Mom, you're hurting the people who love you." Love. They kept using that word like it was supposed to mean something like love was what they've been giving me all those months. I stood washing their dishes, waiting for a chair that was never offered at their table. I sat at the little motel desk, phone, buzzing every few hours, and I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I opened my notebook and started writing again. This time, I wasn't just listing payments and receipts. I was outlining my plan. I called a lawyer the next morning, not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted my life back. The woman on the other end of the phone was steady, professional. "Listen," while I explained the situation, how the house was still in my name, how Brian and Ashley had been living there without contributing a dime. She asked me straight out, "Are you ready to sell the property?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, I'm ready." We scheduled the first filing that same week. It was the first time in a long time I felt my breath come easy. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't arguing. I wasn't begging. I was just doing what they never expected me to do. Standing up, reclaiming the space they had quietly pushed me out of. The lawyer was clear. There was nothing stopping me. I had every right to the house, every legal document in my favor. No transfer, no shared ownership, no protections for them because they had never thought they need any. They never thought I'd leave. They never thought I'd fight. But that's the mistake people make with women like me. We're so good at giving, they forget we know how to take back. The letter went out on a Tuesday, certified mail signed, receipt required. I sat at the little table in the motel room, stirring honey into my tea, watching the clock tick toward noon. That's when the paperwork would land on their doorstep. Official notice. The house was being sold. They had 30 days. No extensions. No renegotiations. No more me, quietly holding up the walls while they lived their curated life. I imagined Ashley pulling the envelope out of the mailbox, manicured fingers, flipping it open, not expecting the words that waited inside. I could almost hear her voice, sharp, confused, starting to rise. I imagined Brian sitting on the couch, the same couch I paid for, staring at the letter like it couldn't possibly be real, like somehow, even now, this was just me being dramatic, a phase, a bluff, but it wasn't a bluff, it was the truth, signed, sealed, delivered. My lawyer called that afternoon to confirm the notice had been received. You'll hear from them soon, and I'm sure, she said, voice, calm, professional, they won't like it, but they can't stop it. I thanked her, hung up the phone. I waited. It didn't take long. That evening, Brian called. I let it ring. Then Ashley, 3 calls back to back, each one going to voicemail. Finally, a text from Brian, Mom, what are you doing? Please call me. Ashley is losing it. We can't lose the house there. It was not we're sorry, not we understand, just panic, fear. I put the phone down, sat back, closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt what it was like to breathe without weight on my chest. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect, and if they couldn't give it, they could give me space because I was done standing outside the life I paid for, waiting to be seen. The next voicemail from Ashley wasn't angry, not at first. Her voice was soft, almost sweet, the kind of tone you use when you're trying to sound concerned, but you're really just fishing for control. Cheryl, we're really worried about you. This isn't like you. Please, let's just talk. You don't have to do anything drastic. Drastic, that's what she called me. Walking away, not cruel, not hurt, not humiliated. Drastic, like I was the problem, like I was the one acting out. The guilt started dripping in slow, polite sentences. You know, Brian has a lot on his plate right now. Work is stressful. I'm doing my best to keep things together at home. We're really missing you. Missing me. The woman they barely spoke to at dinner. The woman who ate leftovers in the kitchen while they toasted champagne in the dining room. I didn't respond, so the next message, changed tone a little sharper, less sweet. It's honestly kind of unfair what you're doing. Brian doesn't need this kind of stress. We're trying to figure things out, but you disappearing and cutting us off, it's not okay. I sat at the edge of the motel bed, listening, watching the sunlight crawl across the carpet. Unfair. That was the word they chose. Unfair to them. Not a single mention of what had been unfair to me. The years of giving. The years of being treated like an extra set of hands instead of a person. I put the phone down again. An open notebook still resting on my lap. I could feel the old habit kicking in. That urge to explain myself. To defend my choices. To soften the blow so they wouldn't feel too uncomfortable. But I didn't. Because here's the thing about guilt when it comes from people like that. It only works if you let it. And I wasn't letting it anymore. By the end of the second week, the tone of their messages shifted completely. The sweetness was gone. The concern replaced by frustration. Ashley stopped calling. Brian took over. Mom, we need to talk. This is serious. You can't just walk away from this. You're not thinking straight. Thinking straight. I let the words sit in my chest like stones. It's funny how quickly people will question your sanity when you stop playing the role they've assigned you. When you stop nodding along. Stop smiling through the disrespect. But what they didn't know, what they never bothered to notice, was that I was thinking clearer than I ever had. And the more they called, the more desperate their messages got. The more obvious it became. They weren't just worried about me. They were worried about the money. I started hearing from neighbors, quiet little comments from people who followed Ashley on social media. How the posts were getting more intense. Long captions about staying positive through hard times. About manifesting abundance. I knew that tone. I'd heard it before. From women trying to keep up the show while everything behind the curtain was falling apart. I did my own digging late at night with my laptop balanced on my knees in that tiny motel room. I pulled up public records, credit histories, loan applications, Ashley, so-called coaching business, running on fumes, no real clients, just staged photo shoots and borrowed quotes from books she never read. Brian's job had been like, months ago, quietly, no updates, no LinkedIn posts, just sitting there at home while I kept paying for the roof over their heads. Their life, the life they built on my back, was smoke and mirrors, and now, without me there to keep it polished, the cracks were starting to show. They had spent so long pretending I didn't matter. Now they were starting to realize I was the only thing holding their world together, and I wasn't holding it up for them anymore. It was almost 3 weeks before Brian knocked on my motel door again. This time he didn't bother with soft knocks or hesitant pauses. 3 hard raps. The sound of frustration, not care. I stood on the other side listening. Mom, please just open the door. We need to talk. I didn't answer right away. I took my time pressing my palm flat against the door for a moment, steadying my breath when I finally unlatched the lock and cracked it open. He was standing there, looking worse than before. Hair dark circles under his eyes, his jacket hanging off him like he lost weight he couldn't afford to lose. He gave me this half smile, the kind he used when he was a kid and knew he was in trouble, but thought he could charm his way out of it. Hey, can I come in? I stayed quiet, didn't move. Look, I know things got a little tense. Ashley's stressed. I'm stressed. We've all been going through a lot. I shouldn't have let it get to this point there. It was the apology, but it wasn't an apology. It was a defense, a list of reasons, stack of excuses. Not once did he say, I'm sorry I let you be treated that way. Not I'm sorry I stood by while she acted like you with the help. Just this vague, soft blame spread thin across stress and miscommunication. I kept my hand on the door. Do you even hear yourself? Brian. His mouth opened, but he didn't have an answer. I could see the frustration building in his eyes, the panic underneath it. We're going to lose the house. Mom, we can't refinance without your signature. Ashley didn't mean what she said that night. You're taking this too personally. Too personally. I almost laughed. Almost, but the sting of it caught me right in the throat. You stood there, I said, voice low. You listened to her. Call me the woman who keeps the house running. You laughed with him. You didn't correct her. You didn't stand up for me. He shook his head, eyes glassy. I didn't realize how much it hurt you. I leaned against the door frame, staring at him. That's the problem, Brian. You never bothered to know what hurt me. His lips pressed together tight, jaw clenched, like he was holding back something sharp, but it didn't come out. I didn't let him in. I didn't let him off the hook. Because after all the years I spent giving him everything, I wasn't about to settle for half-hearted apologies. Not this time. Brian stood there on the other side of the door, eyes pleading like the boy I used to know. But I didn't move. I didn't reach for the lock. I didn't offer him a seat or a cup of coffee. I let the silence sit between us, heavy and honest. Mom, please, he said, voice cracking. Can't we just talk about this like family? Family, that word again. The word they only pulled out when they wanted something, when they needed me, when a house of cards they built was swaying, and they thought I might be soft enough to hold it up one more time. Family, I repeated my voice. Come you mean the family that watched me scrub your plates and never once asked if I was okay? He swallowed hard, staring at the ground. I didn't know it felt like that to you. He mumbled. You didn't know because you never cared to ask. The words landed between us like a slap. He flinched like he wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to say. I stayed steady. You stood by while Ashley treated me like the help, like I was just there to serve. And you let her every single day. You let her. His shoulders sagged, hands shoved into his pockets like a little boy waiting for punishment. I thought you were okay with it. The lump in my throat was sharp, but I didn't let it break my voice. I was never okay. I was quiet. There's a difference. He nodded, slow eyes glassy. I don't know how to fix this, he whispered. I shook my head. It's not your job to fix me, Brian, and it's not my job to keep fixing you. I could see it in his face the way he wanted me to crack, to soften, to do what I'd always done. Forgive, fold, come back. But I didn't. I gave you everything, I said, my voice soft but steady, and you gave me scraps. I took a breath long and slow. You're not losing the house because I'm being cruel. You're losing the house because you never bothered to take care of it, just like you never bothered to take care of me. The tears in his eyes finally spilled over. He wiped at them roughly, jaw clenched, breath shaky. Mom, I don't know how we got here. I do, I said. You stopped seeing me, and I finally stopped letting you. I didn't slam the door. I closed it quietly because I wasn't angry. I was awake, and for the first time in my life, I was choosing me. After that last conversation, Brian and call again. Not right away. I think he finally understood that the words had been leaning on. I'm sorry. Let's talk where family weren't going to work this time. Not now. Not after everything. But their silence didn't mean peace. It meant panic. I could feel it in the way Ashley's Instagram went quiet. No more perfectly plated brunch shots. No sunny yoga poses with uplifting captions. Just blank space where their curated life used to be. I heard from a neighbor that the car Ashley leased had been repossessed right from their driveway. That the credit card companies were calling the house daily. Now, not the bills. The ones I used to quietly pay behind the scenes were stacking up fast. The foundation they built their life on wasn't just cracking, it was caving in. And I didn't have to lift a finger because the truth is, I was never their problem. I was their solution. The soft landing, the safety net, the reason they could spend without thinking, live without planning, smile for the cameras without worrying what held it all up behind the scenes. And now that I was gone, the truth was showing. Ashley posted one last story, a quote graphic about resilience and rising through adversity, and then disappeared from social media altogether. I heard whispers through town that their friends were starting to distance themselves, that Ashley's so-called clients were backing out, that Brian was scrambling, applying for jobs he wasn't qualified for, trying to hold together the image of a life that was already slipping through his hands. I didn't feel triumphant, felt free, because it wasn't revenge, it wasn't payback, it was balance I had spent years giving to people who only knew how to take. And without me there to carry the weight, they were finally feeling how heavy it really was. They weren't losing the house because I was cruel. They were losing it because they never once respected the hands that kept it standing. It was almost a month after ID left when I heard the knock again. This time I knew it was Brian. Before I even got to the door, there was something about the weight of it. Not angry, not demanding, just hollow, empty. I open it slowly. No chain. This time he stood there. Thinner than I'd ever seen him, shoulders slumped, eyes sunken, hair unbrushed, like Habeen, running his hands through it all night. No Ashley in sight. Can I come in? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside. He walked in like he didn't know how to carry his own body anymore. Sat down on the edge of the motel chair, hands clasped between his knees, staring at the floor. Silence stretched between us. Finally he cleared his throat. I didn't come here to ask for anything, he said. I still on the carpet. I know I don't deserve to. I stayed standing. He exhaled, shaky. I don't understand how I let it get this bad. I crossed my arms steady. You didn't let it, Brian. You shows it every time you stayed silent. Every time you laughed along. Every time you watched me carry the weight and told yourself that was just my role. He nodded slowly, lips pressed tight, like he was holding back tears. I was blind. He said softly. No, corrected. You weren't blind. You just didn't care to see. He wiped at his face, rough, frustrated. Ashley's gone. He blurted out. She moved back with her parents last week. Said I was useless. Said she was done. I didn't flinch. I didn't say I told you so. I didn't have to. I spent so long thinking I was protecting her. He continued, shaking his head, standing by her, supporting her. But I wasn't protecting anyone. I was hiding behind her, letting her be the loud one, so I didn't have to be accountable. I sat down across from him, hands folded calmly. You let her treat me like help Brian, like I was just there, like I didn't have a right to be seen. He finally looked up at me, eyes red, voice cracking. I'm sorry, Mom. The words sat there between us, soft, fragile, real, but not enough to fix what had been broken for so long. I nodded. I believe you, I said quietly. But it doesn't change what's done. He gave a smallest SAA smile. I know I don't hate you, Brian, I added, but I love myself more than I love the idea of what we were supposed to be. His shoulders sagged further, like the words hit him harder than anything else. I could have said, Can I be part of your life at all? Someday. I walked to the door, hand resting on the knob. I don't know, I said honestly, but if there's ever going to be a place for you, it's not going to be one you get by default. You'll have to earn it. I opened the door. Take care of yourself, Brian. He stood slowly, nodded once, and stepped out into the hallway. I closed the door behind him, not angry, not grieving, just done. The house sold. 2 weeks later, the paperwork came through quietly. No drama, no last-minute surprises. The place that once held every piece of my sacrifice, every meal I cooked, every bill I paid, every tear I swallowed, was gone. I didn't go back to see them pack up. I didn't need to. I already knew what was in those boxes, the life they built on my back, the furniture I bought, the walls I painted, the comfort I provided, but none of it belonged to them anymore. I moved into a small apartment across town, just 2 rooms and a balcony that catches the morning sun. It's not big, it's not fancy, but it's mine. The first thing I bought was a table just big enough for 2, not for serving, not for cleaning up after anyone else, just for sitting, eating my own meal, hot on my own plate. I started writing again, filling notebook after notebook, not about them, but about me, about the woman. I forgot I was about the one I had always been underneath the years of giving and giving and giving until I had nothing left for myself. Brian hasn't called again. I don't know if he will, and if he does, I don't know if he'll answer, because I'm not standing at the door waiting anymore. I'm not sitting at the edge of a table hoping for a seat. I'm not swallowing my voice just to keep the peace. I'm here whole standing, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the most radical thing a woman can do is stop asking for a place at someone else's table and build her own instead. To anyone out there who's ever been made small in their own home, who's ever been laughed at while they scrub the plates, who's ever been served scraps after giving everything they had, hear me when I say this. You don't open your silence. You don't know anyone you're breaking. You get to choose yourself. And when you do, that's not losing. That's winning in a way they will never understand.